Black Business School. And today is Powernomics Thursday. And you guys know on drboystv.com, we are the home for intelligent Black people. So if you're not Black and intelligent, you should probably leave the building because smart Black people are talking. And so the smartest Black person I know, the smartest Black man out here is Dr. Claud Anderson. And Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and the Black History Reader. And so before we begin, I hope you'll join me in welcoming Dr. Anderson to drboystv.com. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I think I'm doing a little better, Boyce. And, I feel about a 1 or 2 points degree in progress. And I'm hoping I will continue to progress so that I can get fully physically able to really be as active as I used to be before the end of the year, because this might be my last major year trying to change the status quo on Black folk in America. I've spent about 50, almost 60 years trying to do it. It's been an uphill struggle. And as I told you, one of my friends a long time ago, who was the vice president of Ford Motor Car Company, and he said, "I see you're still struggling." I said, "Yep." And he says, he said, "Most of Blacks in the country understand what you're saying." He said, "Well, I can tell you one thing." And I said, "What's that?" He says, "Very few of them are ever gonna come out and help you." They say they see you trying to pull a wagon up the backside of a mountain by yourself. He said, "They're not gonna come out and help you." He said, they hope you might succeed. And if you do succeed and get that wagon to the top of the hill and it start rolling down the other side, they'll be the first one to run and jump on the wagon and try to get a free ride down. He said, "Don't you expect any of these Black leaders to come out and join you and do very much in terms of contributing their time, their effort, their interest, their consciousness, and their money to try to help you get that wagon up the backside of the mountain." And so I've struggled for 50 or 60 years. And unfortunately now nature is calling, saying, "Hey, you can't keep doing this very much longer. Your interest is getting low, your energy is getting low, and your funds are getting low. So you might as well get ready to hang it up pretty soon." So this might be my last year, Dr. Watkins, on being able to try to do what no other Black has tried to do the way I want to do it. And that's based on history and the basic cause of slavery and the purpose of slavery, which means go back and reconnect Black folk to history and change and alter what the primary purpose of slavery was, which was to maldistribute 100% of all this nation's land, wealth, minerals, income, rights, privileges, money, and privileges, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. That's what I've been trying to do by myself. I don't get in these little minor issues. So that's where I am still.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Anderson, I don't think your work's in vain at all. And I think there are lots of people out here that are ready to support and really appreciate what you're doing. And so, in fact, everybody who's in the chat who loves what Dr. Anderson's doing, if you could just say something in here to let him know, use the hashtag Powernomics. Everybody who agrees with Powernomics philosophies, put hashtag Powernomics in the chat so that everybody will know what we're talking about here. Because I'll tell you what, I think that you've established the foundational legacy that's going to last for hundreds of years. I've watched it. I have watched. What do you say?
Oh, I hope you're right. God knows, sometimes I'm on a plane or someplace by myself traveling, and like my first video called "A Vision Beyond a Dream," and I cried on the stage. I had over 15,000 people in the audience. It just hurt me so to talk about how bad off Blacks are and why it's so difficult to get Black folk to change their attitude about what we should be doing and how we should go about doing it. That's why I spent all my years of experience in all levels of government, education, politics, campaigning, and business development, just trying to say, here's the nature of where you are, and here's solutions to the problem. And I haven't gotten that much help, except people like you. You've been one of my strongest supporters, and a few other people. So I don't know, I've done the best I could. And I just think I've always been obsessed with a love for Black folk. And every time I see them hurting, I cry. And I know it's not manly just to be caught crying in public. But I've cried many a times because I feel sorry for my people. And I don't know what else to do. And I'm almost exhausted, I'm tired. But the leadership is still talking about social integration and civil rights, and both of those things have taken Black folks backwards because they were corrupted. They were intervened by competing groups and corrupted and misused and abused to not help Black folk, to shut Black folks down. And I tried to tell Black folk that in all my books. Read those books and get a better understanding. And I don't really know how many has been reading the books, but I know the books have been doing pretty well. And again, because of you and a few other friends. So, but I love Black folk, and even though half of them ain't worth a damn, but the other half is what I love. I love half of the Blacks. We got some half our Blacks always on TV demonstrating inappropriate behavior, acting like something crazy, and in dress, manners, what they do and what they say. But the biggest half of them, I love them.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you make on that, because when I would hear somebody say, well, I don't like that guy over there because I think he's a racist. He does not like Black people. I'll hear that. And the first question I ask is, why are you so worried about whether or not somebody likes you? You really need to like yourself.
Yes.
This idea that we need white people to like us, I think that's a myth, and it's an illusion, because the history of the country is not built that way. But then I said, even if you look at a guy like, say, a Donald Trump, who's been, accused of racism and things like that, which it might be true, it might not. I'm not here to debate that. But I said, Trump does not hate, he does not dislike all Black people. He does not like all Black people. If you are Black and you are liberal, he does not like you. If you are Black and you are conservative, he loves you. And I said, now, if I look at my liberal Black friends, if you are Black and liberal, they like you. But if you are Black and not liberal, they don't like you. So don't nobody really like all Black people anyway. Nobody likes everybody of a certain race, right? It's all about what are you on my side or are you not on my side? And I think that's kind of, and that goes back to what your point was, is that every Black person ain't your friend. Every Black person is not your ally. There's some Black people that are more destructive than the Ku Klux Klan, in terms of their behavior. And I think that's something we have to understand. And so, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you about this. Today, somebody brought it to my attention that Kanye West mentioned Powernomics on Twitter. He was, and I can show you guys a screenshot. It's Dr. Anderson's describing. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen so you can see it. But basically, he tweeted that they were asking about this meeting he had with a guy named Jared Kushner, who's the son-in-law of Trump. And Kanye just randomly says, that I was meeting with Jared and we were talking about the Dr. Claud Anderson book, Powernomics. That's what he said. And that really got a lot of people. Some people were saying, what is Powernomics? Well, who's Dr. Claud Anderson? But there were a lot of people, those of us who know you, actually thought it was good to have that, to lay that conversation out there. So what was going through your mind when you first found out that that Kanye or that these other people are mentioning your book and talking about your ideas in public?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the fact that you brought that kind of recognition to the books and made it public. But on the other hand, I must confess, I've never spoken to either Kanye West or what's the other guy, Jared, I don't know his last name. That's the nephew, the son-in-law.
Jared Kushner.
Kushner, okay. I've never spoken to either one of them. So I cannot, but I do understand and appreciate they're having a high interest in those books. And since the books are in the public arena, anybody can buy the books. And I wish they all had them in their homes and in their schools and in their libraries. And I appreciate them reading, but I don't have a voice on either one. I have nothing to say of negative or positive about anything. I just wish that everybody else would read them also. But I never spoke to either Jared or Kayon, okay?
So make that clear. So basically, you don't have a dog in the fight with the whole Democrat versus Republican stuff. You're not really into that in terms of worrying about who wins and all that.
No, I'm not into it right now. I'm not into anything right now in politics. I used to be when I headed up campaigns. And as I said, I was blessed in the sense that I think, to my knowledge, I'm the only Black that I can point to this, and out of my knowledge of all the Blacks right now in the country and over the last 50 years, I'm the only Black that had the I guess a unique opportunity to be on a campaigning staff or campaign manager for 2 presidents, for a number of governors, for attorney generals, for mayors, and for state legislators, and for people running for Congress. I ran the whole, I wasn't just on the staff, I was a manager, I managed the campaigns, that's it. Secondly, I'm the only Black I know that has ever been chosen to be over a state education system. That's everything on the public sector and the private sector in education, from the nursery schools all the way up to graduate schools. I don't know anybody else that had that in history, along with running those and running all those different levels of campaigns. I'm the only Black I know that head up trade missions around the world for presidents in the third world nations. And I said third world, that's everything from the Caribbean to Latin America, to Venezuela and Colombia, to Africa, to France, to Germany and England. I headed up the campaigns. I mean, headed up the trade missions, where I take sometimes 16 or 20 different companies to go and bid it like the Nougat show in Cologne, Germany. That's the biggest food show that's ever demonstrated on earth. I had a chance to go to all those places and head up those programs. I'm the only Black I know that's ever served as assistant secretary, the first one in the United States government to be assistant secretary of the United States Department of Commerce in the president's sub-cabinet. I'm the only Black I know of that was ever a chairman for economic development for governors. I'm the only Black I know that's ever over this, and this is a major point. I'm the only Black person that was ever appointed to be over a property disposal program for the United States government. That means my signature alone, Dr. Watkins, my signature alone, I didn't have to have the president say okay, or the governor say okay, or anybody else to approve it. I had a staff of 45 people down in Charleston, South Carolina. I could take it, if I wanted to give away some property for the government. By property, what does that mean? That means anything from chairs to desks to furniture to machinery, bulldozers, whatever it was, boats, ships, anything. I could give it away. Did you know that? I mean, the only person who wrote about that was Simeon Booker, who writing for Jet Magazine. He says, now here's who in President Carter's administration, everybody's running around saying this person's ambassador, that person that was chosen as a head of this little department. He says only Claud Anderson, that nobody knows about, has the greatest power of anybody during the Carter administration that's Black. And all they do is take and sign, my staff would go out and get one sheet of paper. And I said, anything I want to give away, all they need is to get the serial number off of it, and I could give it away. Just write my name on it and date it and stamp it and give it to the person. Have it shipped, have a staff that would ship it directly to the person, any equipment. That's like for Florida A&M University, as an example. When I told Gertrude Simmons there, who's the vice president of the university, I said, what you need? She said, we don't get very much anything. I said, you go out there right now and get 3 or 4 of your staff members. You go all over the United States, and whatever you want, that you need, and for the university, in terms of equipment and supplies, you write it down and send it to me and I'll give it to you. I gave her millions of dollars worth of materials that otherwise that was stored. As a matter of fact, I said I put out one on that campus that nobody else had. I wanted to put up I want a program now to train Black fire chiefs, where all the Black fire chiefs in the United States could come to Florida A&M University. And we'll put up a training tower there. We learn how to, a building where they can learn how to get in and out of buildings that are on fire. Training tower to train possible Black fire chiefs, how they can get promoted from just being a fireman to being a chief in these different cities, in small towns all over the United States. I put that there for them using that equipment. Some of them say, well, how about what else? You put a naval unit here so that Black kids could get paid for being in naval ROTC. And they said, we haven't got a boat. I said, okay, I'll send you a boat. And I said to myself, go find a boat and send it to Florida A&M University. They went out and found a PT boat. You know what a PT boat is, a little PT boat from World War II kind of things. You find it, I said, send them a PT boat. And then they'll pay a penny for it. But guess what? They ran a little bit of a hell because they hadn't taken all the guns off the damn boat, but they got a PT boat for the Naval ROTC unit at Florida A&M University. And that's how I got Strong Thurman tied up. Strong Thurman called me and said, Dr. Anderson, he says, you know what? I need some Quonset huts, old military Quonset huts. I don't know, I forget what he wanted them for. I need about 15 or 20 of those. I need 2 or 3 bulldozers. I need this or that, and all the things they wanted. And I said, I'll do it. I'll give it to you. I said, I don't have it. I said, but you got to remember, I practice quid pro quo, which means something for something. I'll give you whatever you want, Senator Strong Thurman. I know you're the chairman for the Judiciary Committee for the Republican Party, and I'm on the Democratic side. But what do you need? I'll get that. Send it to me. And but by the same token, You know what I want in return? He said, what's that? I want at least 3 Black federal judges. Because in 1976, we don't have 1 or 2 Black federal judges in over 300 something years. And this country had appointed over 1,400 federal judges. They were all whites, just like Donald Trump is doing right now. He's put in close to another 100 of them. I said, he only had 1 or 2 Black federal judges in the history of the damn country. I said, I want 3. And I said, here the name, and I want you to put it, and I'll send you everything you want, because I have the authority to give away any kind of government property. No other person, no other Black ever had that responsibility. And so I sent him that equipment, and he said, I'll put those judges for you. And one of them was Al C. Hastings out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Judge Patchett out of Jacksonville, Florida, became a federal judge. I picked another Black out of San Diego, I put in 3 Black judges. And the issue there was, I put in more Black federal judges by myself in that one swoop than have been put in a federal judgeship in over 200, 300 years in the history. So I just made that point, saying that I had that authority. And so right now, if I can do the same thing for the rest of my life on this earth to help Black people, I'll do it. And when people say, you're a racist, I say, I would love to be a racist. I don't qualify to be a racist. Racist, that's one point to make. Black folk need to understand what racism is and what a race is. They've been misled, bamboozled, and led down the primrose by believing what racism is and is not. I can't find 1 or 2 Blacks in America, except those who read my book, understand what racism is. Racism never existed on this earth until the 1500s. And now everybody talks about racism this. They don't even understand racism. What is racism? I used to offer sometimes $500 and $600 somebody to tell me what racism was. And I said, I'll be an audience, 10 or 15,000 people say, you stand up, tell me what is racism, I'll give you $500. And even to right now, I can't get them to do that. They said, well, racism, whether or not you like somebody, or whether or not, they invite you to their house, or you can go to their school or go to their restaurant. I said, that ain't no damn thing to do with racism. I said, let me tell you again, and I'm gonna close out now. I just gave you a 10-minute speech, and I don't want to waste all your time talking about the things I'm talking about now.
No,
I said, first of all, you gotta understand what racism is. Racism is a competitive relationship between groups of people who are competing for the ownership and control of resources. And once they get the majority share of it, they then use that as power to shut down another group of people, to misuse, abuse, to enslave, to Jim Crow, to segregate. That is racism. But racism never existed until at the end of the race that started back in the 1500s and ended in the year 1859, 1 year before the Civil War broke out. That's when racism came into existence. I'm gonna say it again, because I think some of your audience probably missed that. Racism never existed until 1859. That's when it came into existence. And it came into existence at the same time that Charles Darwin came, this whole thing about survival of the fittest, survival of the strongest. The biggest and most powerful was a vertical order. And those who own and control the resources were greater at the top if they had something than those at the bottom who had nothing. Because you see, the race that started out, a race is a contest. A race is a contest. Tell your students that remember this long after I'm gone from this earth. Race is a contest, just like a race in a football, foot racing, or automobile race, or bicycle race, or horse race. It is a contest. That's not, and that's where it came from. It was a contest where 9 European nations got into a contest to see who could develop the western part of this earth, North America, South America, Central America, and all of them jumped in, 9 of them. The Portuguese started off, Arabs jumped into it, Spain followed, then Portugal, then the British, then the French, then the Germans, the Norwegians, all of them, 9 of them are racing, trying to develop the North America, Central America, South America. And they decided to use Black labor as a tool for accomplishing it, because they learned after Columbus discovered America that there are no people over here, and they started a whole concept called capitalism. Capitalism means, and that's what you're living in America. We are in a capitalistic society, and the Black Lives Matter group has to understand They're in a capitalistic society, not a socialist society, a capitalistic society. And capitalism is based on a very simple premise, meaning owning and controlling the land, the tools, and the resources, and then using someone else's labor to enrich yourselves. That is capitalism. That's when they picked up in this country. Owning, control the tools, land, and resources. And slavery was designed to transfer into white folks' hands everything of value. Mm-hmm. And right now, the white people right now still own and control 99% of everything of value in society. And that's why blacks and all that wealth is stored initially in the land. The wealth of the nation is primarily in the land. That's why, if you go back to the Bible, it told them that. That's why when in the Bible, when blacks were enslaved in the Bible under the Pharaoh, and Moses was sent to get them to release the slaves, and black folk keep on thinking that the wealth is in freedom. Freedom doesn't have that much to do with it. See, when Pharaoh turned the slaves loose, they were free. And then what did Moses say? Now that you're free, they ain't worth a quarter, unless we can get some land, some territory. So what he said, I'm gonna take you all and go find what? A promised land. I'm going to take you slaves coming out from underneath the Pharaoh in the Bible. I'm taking you to get some land. And that's why, and that's what the people are running for, to get land. That's what the Europeans came to America for, to get land. That's what the American dream was about, was for land. And whites were told in, go to America. When you hear these Europeans say, well, I came to America to be free. Nobody coming to America to be free. All those Europeans that came to this country, they could have stayed free, Dr. Watkins. They were free in Europe. They didn't get up and leave Europe and catch a boat and come to America looking for freedom. They came to America for the American dream. And what was the American dream? Free, not freedom, but free to get and acquire free land and free labor. Free land and free labor. That's what they came to America for. And that's what's going on right now in the United States. And then that's why blacks got free up in the plantations. They went up in the woods looking for what? Land. They came to set up some maroon cities and communities to get land. They got free after the Civil War. What were they looking for? 40 acres and a mule. They were looking for land. I don't care what they did, whites always denied them land. And right now in this country, and I'll conclude with this, the new thing is called, what do they call it now? When they're going into the black communities, taking over.
You talking about gentrification?
Yeah, gentrification. They gentrified it. Every time blacks broke free at any time in this country, they would never want blacks to own land. So now they're going to go down to what they're up again is gentrification. Gentrification, but gentrification is only part of it. There's two parts to it: gentrification and also privatization. Once you gentrify a land area, then they want again, like they privatized America and gave out 2 billion acres of free lands to whites coming in here as immigrants. Immigrants come to America to be what? Free. Free of what? Look at the bottom of the statute. It says, give me your tired, your poor. Listen to that, tired. Tired of what? Tired of working. You're poor, tired of being poor. That's what they was all about. They were tired of working, so we get free labor, so I won't have to work anymore. And two, I can get rid of poverty by being enriched by going to America. And so every immigrant came to this America, still coming to America, coming here to freeload, not freedom, to freeload. And they can get free land, get free privileges, and get free rights. And that's why gentrification say now we're going to go back in. So blacks still own a little bit of land, across the South. Blacks got about 4 million acres of land, and they're gonna lose most of that because they're gonna take it away from them. And these major cities gonna be gentrified. Washington D.C. When I came to Washington D.C. with President Carter, it was 78% black. Now it's down into the high 30s. They cut down half the population, so the Washington D.C. is no longer known as Chocolate City. It's now been called Vanilla City, and that's where it's down to. Now Detroit, Michigan, and all these other cities, major cities, going to be gentrified. And then once they gentrify them, they're going to privatize all the resources, just like in the United States. That's what slavery did. Slavery gentrified everything and privatize it into the hands of the dominant white society. And that's a game. Now, and that's why when blacks got out of slavery, they couldn't get 40 acres and a mule. But guess what? That was in 1865. In 15 years, from 1865, from slavery, when the end of slavery, up to 1880. At that point in time, blacks had acquired a little less than 1% of the land. To be more exact, it was 1.6% of the land in the United States. Now you take Detroit, Michigan. I just did an exam on Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan now, it was a 92% black city. And guess what? Out of 92% black city, that 3 white families today in Detroit, Michigan owns 99% of all the land, valuable land that could build businesses for redeveloping businesses for black folk. The prime land between the river and 8 Mile Road, owned by 3 white families. They own all of that.
Wow.
That's exactly what they were in 1880. And this is going to soon be 2080. They have moved 1 damn inch. They don't own any, they can't get the land, Dr. Watkins. And so that's what the Black Lives Matter should be talked about, not police reform. If they got a choice, get the land for black folk. Because whites going to take that from them. It's coming up. Okay. And that's why in Washington, D.C., in conclusion, I know you're waiting to comment on this. I'm gonna let you. Washington, D.C., they ran all the blacks out of Washington, D.C. and bought all the old major housing there for about $150,000 for a house. Those the young whites are coming in and taking it over and putting those same houses back on the market after repairing them and renovating them for over $1.5 million a piece. Same thing is going on in Detroit in the housing. So what should we be focused on? Get the land like they did in the Bible. When Moses came in and took the slaves and took them to look for the promised land. Your promised land is a land, that's where the wealth is. In the land is your land, the land itself, the value of the land. It's the timber, it's the gold, it's the silver, it's the chrome, it's the oil, it's gas, and it's everything of value is in the land. That's what you should be going after, because we got food shortages coming up next. As I told you about the 4 horses of the apocalypse, you're now with the pale horse. Food is next. That's going to be your next major problem. We're going to have food shortages coming. Food's going to get destroyed. There won't be enough people around producing food because the government is not focusing on helping the farmers. We got starvation coming pretty soon. That's going to be your next big challenge. And black folk will not be producing food unless they follow those Powernomics books and learn how to start using that land that they have now, a little over 4.5 million acres of land running in the Black Belt, which runs all across North Florida and almost up to Virginia. Get the land and start raising food for your own people in these urban cities.
All right. Everybody who's listening, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson, the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and the Black History Reader. You can get access to his books if you go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. He has an entire library pack with all 5 books and a DVD for just $99. I recommend it. Kanye West shouted out Powernomics today on Twitter. I'm glad Kanye finally is catching up with the rest of us. And as strange as he is, I was very happy to see that he's trying to connect to some of these ideas. Also, if you could do me a favor, guys, if you haven't done it yet, please hit the thumbs up button right now. On the count of 3, everybody hit the thumbs up button. 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Those on Instagram, my phone might die pretty soon. So we're at drboystv.com. So if it does die, just hop on over there. You can finish the conversation. So everybody hit the thumbs up button. So let's talk about this, Dr. Anderson. So you were talking about land, right? And everybody who agrees, who gets the message, remember, we're not just here to talk. We're here to actually plan and solve problems. Type the word land in the chat. Type land to let us know you got the message that we need to acquire land. That means learn how to buy homes, learn how to buy property, learn how to, get assets. Because remember, gentrification occurs because when you were on the land, you didn't make the choice to own that land. You were on it, but you didn't own it, right? So you were ON, but you need to be OWN. Right. So let's not just be on the land. Let's own the land. OK, that's right. So everybody type land in the chat because we need to acquire land. That's where the power is. And speaking of land and power and wealth, and that brings up the topic of reparations. So, Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you about this. This week, Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris, who is of Indian and Jamaican descent. as his vice presidential candidate. Now they asked Kamala, they said, "Do you support reparations for Black people?" And so when she answered the question, she didn't really say yes or no. She just said, "Well, we know that there's discrimination. We know that that Black people have been treated differently. That's why she mentioned she was passing an act. I got to look it up, but it was an act where she says she wants to give a tax credit to all the families that make less than $100,000 a year." And so she didn't. And then she said something that a lot of people were very upset about. She said, "Well, it's not like I'm just gonna go do something just for Black people." And so I'd be curious to know what your take is. She said that I'm gonna find the clip, put it on my Instagram. My Instagram's the Real Boyce Watkins. It's the Lift Act. Thank you. And I'm gonna find the clip, Dr. Anderson, and while you're answering the question, so you can really see what she said and how she said it. But with what I've just told you, what goes through your mind when a politician, a Black politician, speaks in that particular way?
What goes through my mind is what I started talking about with you about 10 or 15 minutes ago about race. That I cannot find anybody to understand what racism is. And what they've done, they've corrupted and neutralized the term. Racism initially only applied to Black people. And what they've done now, they confuse that with things like prejudice, bigotry, discrimination, bias. Those things have nothing to do with Black folk. And as soon as you elect a politician, I'm not speaking strictly of Senator Harris now, just in general, and everybody. They have blended everything and mixed it and confused it. And now they use that as a justification for not doing anything for Black folk. But I think it's sometimes, well, Dr. Anderson, we don't discriminate. Hell, you solely be discriminating. Every human being comes to this earth imbued with the ability psychologically and through his senses to be able to discriminate. Discrimination is a major tool that every person has. Every person has to discriminate. And now every person has to be able to not only discriminate, but to have biases because of which is best for them, or to be prejudiced. Those are natural instincts. But people confuse that with racism. And that's when, and I'm scared when you tell me that Senator Harris and Biden is going to say that everybody, we're going to treat everybody the same. You can't, because see, race with Black folk has a constitutional base. Let me give it to you again. That racism against Black folk has a constitutional base. There's no base for discrimination. Every human being should be able to discriminate. They have to be able to discriminate to make decisions. If you can't discriminate, Dr. Watkins, you can't make a decision. You have to discriminate how you're going to get home or what clothes you're going to wear. There are certain clothing that you're biased towards, you like to wear. Certain colors you like to wear, that's bias. Let me be even more specific. In a given family, when people get married, they have children. But guess what? When they have, the wife or the daughter say, you know what? I have a preference as a wife, as a female, I like to have a girl. And the male might say, well, I have a preference. I want a boy. Those are preferences. That is not racism to have a preference. Two is that once they have those preferences, they then become prejudiced, saying that's exactly what I want. And the male, if a boy comes, the husband is going to be leaned closer to that boy than he will that daughter initially. That's what he wanted. Or three is that they're going to discriminate as they grow up. The father would discriminate on what he does for the daughter versus what he does for the son. Even though they're all in the same family, they're going to discriminate. You got children, you're going to discriminate. That's natural and normal. But that is not racism, Dr. Watkins. Being prejudiced for your son is not racism. And being bigoted by preferring yours over your neighbor's son, that is not racism. And yet everybody on TV, every damn program always try to use the word racism to apply to all those things. The Blacks have a constitutional basis for having a preference in this country to have their problems eliminated, eradicated, that were imposed on them by the structure and the Constitution and this society. You cannot equate Hispanics prejudice towards a Hispanic, a discrimination based on their culture, or they just came into the country. Those are natural things. They just got here. They weren't here when Black for 360 years when Blacks were enslaved. They were not here. Those Hispanics were not here for 100 years when Blacks were subordinated through Jim Crow segregation, the Black codes. Neither were the Asians, neither were the Indians. Nobody has been treated like black folk. And that is racism. Because what happened during the race that started in Europe and came to America, at that point in time through slavery, white folks transferred everything into the hands of white people and people who could be designated as being white. They got everything, blacks got nothing. And so now what you should be focused on, it says now, because blacks were picked up, it was racist, slavery was very specific. It was very specific for black folk. If you're gonna have a solution, you must have a very specific solution for the same people who were put into the toilet, to pull those same people out of the toilet. You cannot, it is racism to compare Hispanics with blacks. I always lump them together talking about Hispanics and blacks in education, Hispanics and blacks in economics, Hispanic and blacks in poverty. The two don't go together. They have no justification. Hispanics were the second group that started enslaving blacks through Portugal and Spain. Why are you gonna try to compare the descendants of slave owners with the descendants of the slaves? Same thing with Asians. Everybody on earth, every religion, every culture, every language group, every ethnic group has enslaved black folk on this earth. Now to come back and even American Indians, it were enslavers. Quit trying to equate and trying to use these very broad, ambiguous terms called people of color, minorities and poor folk, use it to talk about equality. Don't put black folk into equality until you pull them out of the ditch. That's when I was in politics, that's why I didn't play that. And so right now, when I talk about Harris, I hope Harris and Biden, if they get elected, don't fall into that bag. They say, well, we can't do anything for black folk. We can't specifically identify with black folk to help them because we got to treat everybody equal. No, you don't. That's racism. It's racism when you talk about you're going to treat everybody equal. And here, in other words, if you cripple black folk for 460 years, then say, yes, we cripple them and they need a wheelchair, but I can't give these black folk a wheelchair unless I give everybody a wheelchair. Dr. Watts, that didn't make no damn sense. That's the best way I can put it. That irritates my butt.
All right, everybody. If you are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2 in the Black History Reader. His website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. So if you have kids at home that you're educating, which all of us have kids at home, a lot of us, if you have kids, they're in your house because it's a pandemic. Well, this is a good time for you to take over the educational process of your kids. And I really encourage you to teach some Powernomics concepts to your children, have them introduced to the Dr. Anderson ideas. Don't just take it in yourself, be active, go tell somebody about it, share these ideas, because this is how, they talk about the coronavirus spreading out there, but that's a negative thing. Well, we need the Black Power virus to spread. That's going to be a positive thing. So I want you to go and touch other people in your community, touch people on your social media. Take this link right now and share it just on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your Instagram, so other people can be introduced to the ideas that are going to give us access to freedom and power. Because those two words, freedom and power, are used all the time, Dr. Anderson, but I don't think we understand what freedom is. I don't think we know what power is. First thing you do in Powernomics is you explain what power is. And when I read that, I said, we think we have power. We talk about Black power and all that. But I said, the first thing I realized, Dr. Anderson, I said, based on your definition, which you define, if I recall, power to be the ability to pursue your agenda despite the opposition of others. And I remember thinking, if you got to ask somebody for power, then you don't have no power. Right. If you got to go beg another man to give you power, not only do you not have any power, but you're not going to get no power that way. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, and that's why I use the term Powernomics. And initially, say power. Power is the ability to be able to move people and things in spite of resistance. Again, power is the ability to move things, a big rock or a chair or desk, in spite of resistance. Resistance can be gravity, or it can be other people holding that chair down. If you can't lift it and move it, then you don't have the power. That's the first thing. But it is the power that I want the blacks to have, is the ability to move it in spite, saying, I don't give a damn if you are against it, even if you don't want to do it. If you're against me, I've still got enough to overcome your resistance, Dr. Watkins. That's what power is. You're right on to point as usual. And now economics is a word, that's a Greek word meaning get one's house in order. That's what economics meant. Economics means getting one's house in order. That's a Greek word. But what I did, I took the word economics and I cut the ek off. The echo, and I cut that off. Then I took the word power and pushed it up against the nomics. And that's how I come up with Powernomics, which means I want to get Black folk all my life. All my life, I've struggled to get Powernomics, to get Black folks' house in order with money and resources. I don't have the ability to have an economy in every Black neighborhood and have our own businesses, our own restaurants, stores, and so we can practice group economics and group politics. We don't have to get along with anybody. I don't want Blacks to go out and say, I want social integration so that you all love me and I can come into, and I'll show you that there's no difference between us. I can come in your neighborhood, in your school, and your family, and your culture, and your movie theater, and we can all get along. That's not my issue. I figure once you get Black folk out of the hole and give them some Powernomics, economics, then if they want to go and go to somebody else's run, they got that right. That's why I disagreed with John Lewis and I disagreed with Martin Luther. The issue should have never been, do you want segregation or do you want integration? I told him back in the 60s with Martin Luther, I said, I don't believe in that. The issue should have never been, should Black folk have social integration or integration? See, now they got so locked into those differences that all of a sudden, what Dr. Anderson, what you're talking about, that's segregation for us to own something. We need to be a guest in what other people own. So I said, no, the issue is that, as a matter of fact, the white guy down in Tallahassee, Florida, once over the Hilton Hotel, I was speaking there. He came and he said, Dr. Anderson, come here, man. He said, let me tell you something. He said, you know what? He said, I listen to hear you. I get confused. I said, why? He said, you know why? I've heard Martin Luther King talking about social integration and on one end of the stick, and I've heard Malcolm X read some of his books talking about segregation on the other end of the stick. Now you tell me, which end of the stick do you Black folk want? I said, that's speaking for Black folk, and I have that right and privilege. I don't want either end of the damn stick. I don't want either end. I don't want the integration stick, and I don't want the segregation stick. What I want is the ability for Black folk to come together any place on that stick, anytime they want to, and ethno-aggregate. Why? I see, you don't ask Asians when they come to this country. You don't ask Hispanics. You don't ask Polish or German people. When you come to America, do you want segregation or integration? Why the hell would you ask Black folks that? I said, you ask them, but you think some of them just got that kind of inappropriate behavior pattern, a lack of, and they'll never be particularly noted for their intellectual facility. And they'll say, well, I really prefer some social integration to be segregated. I don't want to be with all the other Blacks. I said, that's not the damn issue. The issue is why can't you come to have your own community with your own resources, taking care of your own people, building your own businesses, your own industries, and buying from your people, building your own tax base, providing jobs for your own people, rather than trying to educate them to work for other people. I hate that. And so you tell them, is Anderson a racist? I don't qualify to be a racist. Racism is a group phenomenon. Black folk don't have enough damn power to be a racist. That's why you may say once in a while that Farrakhan not a racist. Farrakhan don't have enough power to tell white folks where they can live, or he can't enslave white folk. Why you can call him a racist? He doesn't have that kind of power. The only way they can get that power is those who start practicing Powernomics. Then they can learn how to play the game, they can win. And that way, white folks, I don't want you to come to my restaurant. They say, hell, I don't want to come anyway. Why am I gonna march and sing around your damn restaurant? They come in there and you come in there and you just to give you the right to hit me in the head with a brick and then come bring me food that you spit in and then take an ass whipping. I said, no. And then just to give you the right to take my money. I'm not gonna beg you and take an ass whipping so you can take my money. I'll go across the street and build my own restaurant. That's Powernomics. You build your own resources and take care of your own people. Now they call me a racist. I'll say, I love it, but I can't qualify as a racist. I can't shut down anybody's business. When I have a business, I hire Black folk. So I try to practice Powernomics. And I get my friends like you, and we practice Powernomics by saying, own and control. That's what gives you your opportunities. One of the first things you should learn in economics is that people say, well, we got equal opportunities. You can never have equal opportunities unless you have equal resources. It's impossible. In theory and practice, it can never exist. You can't have equality and you can't have equal opportunity if you don't have equal resources. Right
Mm,
now. You see what I'm saying? So people use these very broad terms that are ambiguous, don't make any damn sense. They give it to black folk and black folk bite into them and swallow them. Don't do
mm,
that. You know what? Black folk don't need no damn equality. What they need is they need a disproportionate amount of money and resources put in their community. You get if white folk now, if you're gonna give out something, white folk right now got $100 bill and I got 2 cents. Why are you gonna treat us as equal? And say, well, I'm gonna treat both of y'all as equal because I just got elected to the in November, and I'm gonna replace Trump, and I'm gonna treat everybody the same. Whites got the $1, and you got 2 cents. I'm gonna give both of you the same amount of money. So therefore, he gives me a nickel, and now I got 7 cents. He gives a white folk, and the white folk now got $1.07. That ain't no. Dr. Watkins, Dr. Us, please stop me because that doesn't make none of this stuff I'm talking about now makes any sense. I've explained all this stuff in my books for years. Stop black folk from buying these mythological things, these broad ambiguous terms, and always going to try to save everybody. I don't care that black folks are criminals and can't walk, need a wheelchair. But if I can't, I'll never give a black person a wheelchair unless I give a wheelchair to everybody. That doesn't
mm.
make any damn sense, Dr. Watkins.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that is an interesting point that you make because it's really fascinating. Like when you see and you listen to people like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden speak or whoever, they have this real interesting job where they're trying to appease their black base and get black folks to show up to the polls like we always have, but then they're trying to appease white people who don't want to do anything specifically for black people, who would be offended. Like you can listen to their language, you can tell they have a fear of saying, look, black people have this specific issue. We're going to address this specific issue. So instead they just say, well, we're going to take care of everybody. So, really, if you think about it, the way, or at least my conclusion has been that you can't serve me and him at the same time if he hates me that much. Like if he hates, it's like if you got two friends and one of your friends says, you could be friends with everybody else. That's fine. As long as we can maintain our friendship. But then your other friend says, if you bring him around, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I don't want no parts of this because I hate that guy. Right? How can you be friend? How can you have both of those two people at the same party? How can you invite two friends at the same party when one of your friends, the bully, just says, if you bring him in, I'm leaving. I hate this, whatever. And that's what it is when you're black, because black people don't really, we don't really hate other people the way other people hate us.
That's right. That's it.
We don't tell Joe Biden, look, if you do something for the Jews, we're gonna cancel you. If you do something for the Italians, then we're gonna get rid of you. If you do something for anybody else, if you take care of white people, then we're just gonna leave the party. That's wrong, right? We don't do that, but they'll do that to us.
That's
the
right.
minute they stand up and say, black people have been hit extra hard. Black people, we need a few $1 trillion to address what we've done to these people. These people are a loyal, committed base. They have stood by us even when we did not stand by them. So we have to, as a country, do the right thing and make this community whole because of what we've taken from them for so long. If they were to say that, all these white people that are supposedly your friends, your so-called liberal friends, would get up in arms. You can't do that. You can't do that to those people. So you can't tell me that those people are any better than the Ku Klux Klan. They are no better than the Klan as far as I'm concerned. Because why in the hell? You know what we went through. You know what we're dealing with. You know where we are as a community. Why are you offended by the fact that they even will take a moment to address that which we have to address as a country, right? So until they start having those honest conversations, they are not going to get my vote. You will not get my support when you are taking care, when you are catering to people who hate me. Right, you cannot be my friend if you are catering to people who hate me, and I have nothing against them at all. We don't talk about no hate on this channel. We don't say negative things about other people. We don't attack, just go after people for no reason. So why do you hate us so much? And I think that's to me one of the most fundamental questions that needs to be asked is, why do so many white Democrats really hate the idea, like get disgusted and angry about the idea of giving black people reparations? that makes you a racist, as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, Dr. Anderson.
It is, and see, and the reason they do it is because see, the present day Democratic Party used to be the Republican Party, and now the Republican Party used to be the Democratic Party, the Dixiecrats from the South. They just switched uniforms. They went. This is where it was during slavery. Democrats here, the enslaving group. Republicans were trying to be nice to blacks, only a small quantity of them. But after 1930s, they switched. And so the Democrats you're talking about now is really the old Republican Party, the weak party, the meeks and the freaks. And the Republican Party now is really the Dixiecrats, the one who used to hate blacks and enslave. They get pissed when you start talking about it, about doing stuff with black folk, because they feel when the Civil War, they feel that they lost all that land in the South. They lost all those privileges. They lost that genteel society in the South during the Civil War because black folk did not rise up and fight with them to fight the North. That's what they're pissed about. They're pissed about that. We put in about the second year of the Civil War, they brought in about 200-some thousand blacks into the Union Army to help fight the South. And that pissed the South off. They lost everything. They had all the land in the South. But you go back to your point though, is this: what people don't understand, and neither party, and if they do understand, they're playing games and have a pretext that they don't understand. That the civil rights, what the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment was about, Dr. Watkins. The 13th and the 14th Amendment in the Constitution meant corrective action. Correct means do something you've been doing wrong. That's why by 1865, they call it reconstruct. Not only correct 13th, 14th, and 5th, I mean, correct what you've been doing against black folk, point one. So these people you're talking about, if they're not doing that, they're violating the law. They're violating the damn law. The law said 13th, 14th, and 15th minutes mean correct with the conditions that you put black folk under. And two, call it reconstruction. So between 1865 and 1875, it was a 10-year period called reconstruct. Reconstruct. Look in the dictionary to find what reconstruct means. It means do it over again because you sucked up and did something wrong. That's what it means. Go correct it. Go correct it. And that was for the 10-year reconstruct. That's only for 10 years before the conservatives took over again and killed off Reconstruction. Now, the 13th and 14th Amendment said this, that basically in those 13 laws, it says, give black folk the same rights. Listen now, Dr. Watkins, give black folk the same rights enjoyed by white citizens. Listen to that now. Black folks supposed to get the same rights as enjoyed by white citizens. Now that means that, and the white citizen got their rights under the 5th Amendment. That's why they never had the 13th and 14th and 5th Amendment until after slavery, because they didn't have a need to it. Anybody coming to the country, they functioned well under the 1 through 12 Amendment. Nobody would need to say, I need some more amendments. We don't need anything else because the only person needed was black folk. And black folk were slaves, so they didn't need it. But the white folk got all of their rights under the 5th Amendment. And the civil rights laws of 1866 enhanced it by saying this. I'm gonna read to you what it says. It says that the civil rights law of 1866 that was written strictly and solely for black folk is now being abused by every politician that I know of. None of them, they take an oath, said, I hereby swear. They raise their hand when they're sworn into office, either the representative or the senator or the president. So I hereby raise my hand. They take an oath saying that I swear to observe and preserve and to protect those individuals who put me in office. That's called a sworn oath. They follow the laws of this country and to carry out the laws of this country faithfully and dutifully. That's what the Civil Rights Law of 1866 said. And it says that the first order in the 1866 Civil Rights Act was to lift every official, Dr. Watkins, has an obligation and mandated to lift the badges and incidents of slavery off the shoulders of black people. I'm gonna give it to you again. The 1866 Civil Rights Law says that it is mandated that every elected and public official must exercise all necessary means and use their powers to lift the badges and incidents of slavery from the shoulders of black people. Now, did you hear me say anything about lifting off the shoulder of minorities, of poor people? Did you hear me say anything about lifting off the shoulder of women versus men or gender or transgender? No, that's not what it says. These things were written strictly and solely for Black folk. Again, read it. It says, lift the badges and incidents of slavery off the shoulders of Black folk. Nobody else was enslaved but them. And the same thing was carried through all those civil rights laws. And that's why the slaughterhouse case of 1873 said the same thing. Whites tried to use the 14th Amendment. You had a group of meat cutters down in New Orleans that felt that they were being discriminated against because in the factories down there and the slaughterhouses in St. Louis, in New Orleans, and they filed a lawsuit against the meat cutting company by saying they were being discriminated against, or that they used the word discrimination because they couldn't use racism because they were never slaves. And so they filed with a Supreme Court's decision, a case rather, and the slaughterhouse came back with this kind of a notification from the United States Supreme Court saying this. They want to make it perfectly clear to you that the 14th Amendment, 14th Amendment to the Constitution was instituted to prevent white folk and any people who can pass for white folk, again, from using their power and wealth and resources to re-enslave or to commit injuries against Black folk. That's what that said. The 14th Amendment was written clearly and clearly for Blacks, descendants of slaves, to raise the badge and incidents of slavery off of their shoulders. That's it. That no other group can use those things. And that's called a slaughterhouse case. You can go look it up in your dictionary of law of legal decisions. It's called a slaughterhouse case of 1873. That's what in 1872. That's what that's about. But now everybody uses the 14th Amendment to bring in immigrants. Even corporations now use the 14th Amendment. That's why in a 20-year period, and from the 1880s all the way up to all the way up to the 1900s, corporations took cases to the United States Supreme Court, and guess what? In all those, and even though the 14th Amendment was written for Black folk, and here's how it went. That corporations used the 14th Amendment 319 times and won in the Supreme Court. And the court says, now Black folk that the 14th Amendment was written for, all the cases they filed, they only won something like about 15 times. But the corporations got awarded 319 times, with what Black folk that was written for can only use it 15 times. Everything now that was put in place for Black folk, the Civil Rights Laws of 1866, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, those things were written strictly for Black folk, but nobody enforces it. So everybody you see sitting right now in a public office, elected office, as you talks about these words about everybody, all the people, poor people, underclass, middle class, they're doing that, and that's violating the law. But you haven't got enough Black lawyers right now in the country, in these law schools, that just to be raising all kind of hell, saying, how are you going to take the Civil Rights Law of 1866, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, and use them on everybody, but you can't use them for Black folk, talking about we can't be race specific. You gotta be racist specific. You were racist specific when you put Blacks into slavery. You gotta have put race. You gotta have use race specific terms to bring their asses out.
That's right.
I hope you understand what I'm saying, Dr. Watkins. You gotta be race specific. Anybody thought they're not race specific, they're violating the damn law. That's the bottom line.
Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His books are excellent books for you to have in your family, on your coffee table. Get your kids started on Powernomics principles. If you like to take a look, go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Also, you can subscribe to his YouTube channel if you go to powernomics.com as well. So make sure you support what Dr. Anderson has going on. It looks like Kanye West was speaking highly on Powernomics. Most people that get exposed to these ideas they're excited about the ideas because they're different from what you're taught in school. HBCU should be teaching Powernomics, and I think that the fact that many of them don't really speaks to it should make us question whether or not they're really there to empower you or to just prepare you to go work for white people. It doesn't mean that HBCUs are bad. A lot of you went to HBCUs, and I fully support them, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want to teach the principles of economic liberation, because we know that the principles that we've been taught have not worked. In fact, gentrification would not have succeeded if you were thinking as owners and investors and producers. But because you're teaching, because you've been thinking as renters and consumers and people that give your money away, then you have no ability to own the property. And so somebody can't come in and just take your land if you have chosen to own it. And remember, a lot of the areas that are being gentrified right now with these $1 million condos, that land used to be cheap. That land used to be something that we could have bought with the amount of money we spent on Popeye's chicken and Gucci and going to the club and all the other things that you spend money on. We could have bought all of that land, but we weren't thinking like owners. So power is a mentality, right? And that's what we believe in here, and that's why you're here today, because we're looking for power. Search for the power. Stop looking for the party. Start looking for the power. Less twerking, more reading. Seriously, don't get caught up with what the hip hop culture is teaching you, because they're teaching you strugglenomics. You need to learn powernomics. So, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this question before I let you get back to your day. I'd love to get your take. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this Kanye West thing where he met with Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and he said that they were talking about your book. They were talking about Powernomics. Now, one of the questions that was brought up on my Instagram by Michelle Martin, and I thought this was a good question, is she said, well, if you're going to meet with somebody to talk about Powernomics, why did you not just go meet with Dr. Anderson? Now, I know Charlamagne the God met with you. Some other people have met with you. But in Wesley Snipes, you speak highly of him as well. But that's my question is do these political leaders, when they're looking for solutions for the Black community, and with all the respect you have for millions of people everywhere, do they reach out to you and talk to you? And if not, why not?
Well, some of them do. And Wesley used to, and Usher called me several times, and he's very concerned and a very conscious Black man. So I appreciate him. Charlamagne, Tiffany.
Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany
Yeah,
Haddish.
yeah. And I want you to know and I don't know how you feel about it, but I think she's a marvelous woman. And there are a lot of things she's trying to do now for Black folk I'm well aware of. And one day I will share that with you. But she's very concerned about Black people. So that use her and Tiffany and Charlamagne and Wesley Snipes and Usher. And I don't know, sometimes Stevie Wonder might, but then he gets off in all this stuff again about saving everybody. He gets off into Martin Luther King and John Lewis stuff about saving the world. And I tell him straight up, it's not Black folks' responsibility to save the world. If you're on the bottom of the damn pile and everybody's on your back and on top of you, why would you expect to be the person on the bottom trying to save everybody on top of you, Dr. Watkins? That's not your responsibility. You have neither the power nor the strength or the resources or the commitment as a group and organized structure to do anything to save anybody but yourself. And I keep telling Black folk, don't let civil rights leaders convince you that you got an obligation to every time something comes up, some form of discrimination against women, discrimination against kids, discrimination against a culture, discrimination against a language group, discrimination against an ethnic group. That's not your damn responsibility. Sit down and take care of your own people. And that's like Julian Bond was talking one day about the NAACP saying, we got a responsibility to save everybody. And one Hispanic called in on the radio and said, look, he says, I'm a Hispanic. I don't need you to try to save us. He said, why not? He said, because I'm a Hispanic. We got our own resources. We got our own organizations. We got our own plans. We got our own communities. We don't need you to try to spend your resources at the NAACP taking care of us. We don't need you. And Julian Munson, but you're still, Julian Bond responded, well, but you're still people of color. He said, what color are you? And this Hispanic says, I'm white. He said, no, you're not white. He said, I am white. He said, what's your family color? He said, white. He said, what are your friends? He said, white. And Julian Bond said, well, we consider white to be people of color too. I said, what? Now I'm listening on the radio. I said, what the hell is that now? And the man is telling you he doesn't need you and doesn't want you to be trying to save him. He got his own. But you cannot convince Black folk that they should be prioritizing the interests of their own people first. And I always try to use the best analysis I can make, and that is like as a pilot. I'm a pilot. I'm a certified pilot. I haven't flown in planes now in about the last 40, 50 years, but as a pilot, my responsibility is to my passengers. And if I'm on that plane as a Black passenger, the last thing I need to do is jump up and say, we've lost cabin pressure at 30,000 feet now. We're gonna go, and until we recover, everybody, there's a mask falling down over your seat. Put the mask on yourself. And the Black person jumps in, well, I want to put mine on. I want to first ask, are there any minorities and poor folk and people of color and transsexuals, bisexuals, homosexuals back there need a mask? So I pick up the mic and say, sit your ass down and take care of your own people. And take care of yourself and your own people. You can't save anybody else, and you can't save yourself. You're a Black folk in the same ditch they were in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. You have not moved one iota. At that time, you had 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in the nation. Here you're now, all these years later, still having 1/2 of 1%. And projections say that in another 21, 25 years, your net worth is going to go down to 0. So why are you trying to save the whole damn world? You can't save yourself. And I'm gonna stop there and say, Black folk, please wake up and smell the coffee. And I'm sorry on your show today, I heard myself use a couple of bad words, curse words. I have to apologize to your audience. I don't usually curse, but I did curse a couple of times, say a couple of bad words. And please forgive me, host, for saying that and doing that, and no disrespect to you or your audience. But sometimes I get so angry with my people because it's almost impossible for them to learn what I learned in Korea. When the enemy come over the hill, and every year in North Korea, every morning about 7:30, 8 o'clock, the North Koreans and Chinese will come over the hills, blowing their bugles and horns and shooting rockets or missiles and bullets, coming over the hills. And Black folk, and you go out there and half-hour soldiers will hear them coming, and to go out there and look and see some of them laying over in the ditch over there, some hiding behind a fence and behind a tree, and laying on the damn gun. Laying on that gun, and enemy is coming. He's shooting at you and bombs, throwing hand grenades and shooting rockets and missiles at you. And you go there and say, look, why are you laying in that ditch, laying on top of your gun, covering like this? He said, what you want to do? Get up off your knees and get off, quit laying on your own their rifle and get up and start shooting back at them. They're shooting at you, trying to kill you. They said, well, Dr. Anderson, if we were to do that, shoot, that might make them mad. I said, who the hell cares about making somebody mad and they're trying to kill you? And see, that's the problem now with Blacks in America. A lot of our leadership are so scared, as you said earlier. They coming out hiding and scared to say that my people elected me to public office. And the whole point of politics is based on a quid pro premise, which says people put you in public office, you owe them. You're supposed to protect them and take care of them. But our people, as soon as they get elected office, the first thing that come out of their mouth is that Black people just elected me to the president of the United States, and I'm gonna take care of everybody. The people that were against you in the election were the opposition party. Why are you gonna try to take care of the opposition party, Dr. Watkins? They just got through fighting you and calling, talking about your mom and everybody else. You're gonna get up and say, I'm gonna take care of them too. You a dumbass then.
You know what's funny? Speaking of dumbass stuff, I'd love to get your take on this, and this because this is an interesting point that was brought up when we were chatting on the internet. And every time I make a comment about something that a Democratic candidate is not doing, the first thing that somebody will always do is they'll come in and they'll say, "Well, why are you asking what Joe Biden's going to do for Black people? Why don't you ask Trump?" Or Biden didn't do that. Yeah, but what did Trump do? Did Trump do any better? And that tells me they don't understand the quid pro quo of politics. You don't ask for favors from the people you didn't vote for. It's the people that you voted for that owe you favors. So I just explained to them, I said, when the Republicans get 90% of the Black vote, then believe me, I will be challenging them too. But you don't go, if you are comparing, if your standard of comparison for Joe Biden or what you expect out of Biden is to say, well, if Trump didn't do any better, then you don't understand politics. That's like if I work the whole week and I go to my boss and say, where's my paycheck? And my boss says, well, the store down the street, they didn't give you a paycheck either. Walmart didn't give you a paycheck. Well, I didn't work for Walmart. I don't work for the store down the street. I work for you. I gave you service, so you owe me money. So you're not voting. Black people don't vote for the Republicans at the same level that we vote for the Democrats. So when you're talking about who owes you and who you have to hold accountable, you start with the people that you serve, that you supported. And I think that's important. I'd love to get your take on that, Dr. Ensign, about that quid pro quo, because it doesn't seem like we get it. It seems like we really think that our support should be free, and that if our enemies are doing less than what we expect from our allies, then our allies must really be our friends. That it's okay to do nothing for Black folks because Trump doesn't do anything for Black folks. I don't understand that logic. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, you just gave a good example. And see, as I said, typically I quit voting after I got out of politics. As I said, I don't have a dog in the fight, so I don't care one way or the other. But this year, conditions are so bad for my people, and my future looks so hopeless in many respects. This year, I might vote for the first time, but if I vote, I'll probably vote for the Democratic Party. But the problem with that is that Obama set a role model for Black folk and for elected officials. Did you know that? He said, Black folk have voted for Obama twice. Each time he gave them more than 96% of their vote. The Black America gave Obama 96% of their vote, put him in office twice. And based on the premise of politics, which means quid pro quo is I put you in office, you owe me. You have a debt to me to pay me, to be responsible, to look out for me and care about me first and foremost. And in 8 years, Obama did absolutely nothing for Black folk. He did not say, even though he got 96% of the vote. And so what he's done now is that he sets up a model so that right now, people like Trump, who supports a lot of rednecks in the Confederate states, the first traders in the country, which are southern states, those red states, Trump could say right now, well, why should I do anything for Black folk? I never in the history of the nation have we ever gotten more than 2% of your vote, or 3 since the 1950s. And this last time you gave me, I got 9%. That was a high. So if Obama did nothing, then the rule is that I don't have to do anything for you. I can just say, I'm gonna do the same thing what Obama did for you. Obama promised you nothing and gave you nothing. And that's all Trump has to say. And I wouldn't support Trump, and I'm just saying that as an example. I don't get into politics like that anymore, but if you put a Black person in office and he's scared to say, Black people put me in this office, I swore an oath to serve them in this office, then you should do something. And you should tell your people that. That's why when the Hispanics come to office, that's why the Hispanics started a Hispanic caucus. Hispanics every year, they caucus, and they give a report back to all the Hispanics in the country saying, here's what our agenda was last year, here's what we did for you. And we always try to put your interest first before anybody else's interest. We'll put your interest before Black interests. And because we know that Black folk can carry water for everybody. We know that. They've been conditioned as slaves to carry everybody's water and don't expect a damn thing in return. They ascribe to that old farmer's premise that says on a farm that the willingest horse or the willingest ass will pull the heaviest load. And Black folk have always said, we believe in the first page of the history book about we got to serve, be concerned about all people, so we'll carry everybody's water. And that is unrealistic. And on this earth, you get nothing but a butt kicking. Now, if you carry out that premise, when you die and you go to heaven, you might get 2 cookies if you're lucky. But you're not gonna get any cookies on the earth for it. You're supposed to look out for your own people first. And people say, well, the Bible tells us to look out for everybody. No, it didn't. John was the first person that was commissioned in the Bible to go out and fight to promote the Hebrew scriptures. But he said, I will gladly do that, but first I'm gonna look out for Jews before I look out for any other group. That's why if you read the Bible, that the Jews fought the Hittites, the Hemelites, all the groups. He fought all the groups. And the Black folk right now are so concerned about trying to get along with everybody, they would never stand up and fight for their own people, put their own people's interests first. They say, yeah, well, we got some food here on the table. but I'm gonna feed my people first. Then we'll save a little bit for everybody else. I'm gonna save a little bit for the Asians, for the Arabs, and for the Hispanics. But the bulk of what I'm fighting for here is for my own people. That's what you're supposed to be for. It's based on quid pro quo. Who put you in office, you owe them. But you can't convince blacks of that, and that's the problem. So to answer you, I hope that Harris and Biden would change their philosophy and get out and read the Powernomics books and learn some of these things. And again, I apologize for using those cuss words today, but you just touched a couple of sore spots with me. And I never talked to Biden, and I never talked, because they never called me. And I never talked to Kanye West. I never talked to any of them. But I do appreciate the fact that they read the books, but the books are in the public markets, and everybody got a right to go buy them and read them and put them into their schools and their homes and their libraries. And I appreciate your concern and you're pushing those books all the time. And hopefully between now and the election time, I wish that every black home, every black school, every black library would have these books in there, so our people get a better understanding. Because these are special books for exceptional people. There's nobody on the earth like black folk, native black folk, not African American, but native black folk. There's a difference between an African American and a native black American. If they get those books, I'll be much more hopeful about our chances to be able to survive.
All right. So everybody, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. His books are Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. You can get all 5 of his books and a DVD in the library pack for $99 if you go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Also, I have a book called, basically it's a breakdown of the new paradigm of Black America. And if you want to take a look at the book, the title is It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, A New Paradigm for Black America. You can have that book for free. Just go to allblackeconomics.com. That's allblackeconomics.com. Somebody please type that in. And what that does, Powernomics, I want you to read Powernomics first. Your children should read it. It'll change your life. The new paradigm for Black America, which we did a little tour. Farrakhan joined us and some others. Basically lays out a new line of thought, a new paradigm focused on wealth, education, family, and community. So we can get back to what our country was before integration. Integration watered us down. It hurt us. We don't have communities anymore. We just have a bunch of neighborhoods. The family structure was destroyed. That killed off the Black community. We lost our value of education because we're allowing other people to educate us. And also our wealth has been depleted and it's continuing to go down. So we've got to change course, Black people. We've got to change course. When you look at Black wealth deteriorating, you're watching a train wreck in slow motion. And what I am asking you all to do is to get off the damn train. Get off the train. It's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. So so do me a favor, guys, before we let Dr. Anderson go. He's blessed us with his time. Everybody in the chat, please give me a yes that you will share this video on your social media. Type yes in the chat and make a verbal commitment, please, to take this link and share it, because everybody needs to hear this message. Use hashtag B1, hashtag B and the number 1. That means that we're Black first. We put our people before anybody else. So if you agree with that philosophy, give us a verbal confirmation and put hashtag B1 in the chat. So Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure get a chance to talk to you.
Well, I think I'm with you every week, and I bet you Dr. Watson gets tired of listening to me. He smiles about things, about history. I just love history. I don't know, and I don't think you can survive without knowing where you came from and how you got where you are. Then you're in a better position to determine where you want to go and know where you are. And but a lot of our people don't want to talk about Black history, so be it. But I love history, and I think Black folk are special people, and they must always look in the mirror and say, we are special people. There's nobody on this earth like us. We're the first people on earth. We're the most patriotic people in America. We're the only people that were enslaved, Jim Crow segregated. We're the only people that have been denied and been misused and abused by every ethnic group, every religious group, every gender group. We have been abused. We have enriched everybody on earth but ourselves. And what Dr. Anderson is saying with Powernomics, it is time for us to enrich ourselves before we continue to enrich all other people on the earth.
Yes. All right. Well, well, everybody, if you could join me in giving a digital thank you, a digital round of applause to Dr. Anderson. Let him know how much you appreciate him. Also, please hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to drboycetv.com if you haven't subscribed yet. We're going to keep on keeping it black and intelligent. This is the platform for intelligent black people because we're going to rise above the ignorance. Intelligence will win. That is the new black power. So everybody take care. Have a great day. And thanks a lot, Dr. Anderson. I look forward to
Thank
seeing
you,
you.
buddy. See you next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll see you soon. Take care now.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.